Hey, Terry Caliendo from Dedicated Managers here again, and working on this forward and next or previous and next pagination deal here, and I've got it working great. I can page forward and page back, and everything's working good. When I get to the end of my search, I've got the previous grayed out. Got some efficient stuff there that I want to talk about. But first, I want to talk about when I get to here's all the way to the end, and that grays out that way. But let's talk about like if I load an entity. So this is my list, this is my search. So right now I'm searching in the forward direction. And if I click on, say, Tony the Tiger, I now load Tony the Tiger's information. This is where you would edit him. And if I go back to the dashboard, I don't clear that listener on the individual entity, that editing screen I was just on. So that it can still receive live updates, and also so that when you go back to it, it doesn't have to reload. It's in cache already. But the weird thing is now when I step through my list here, did you see that I'll go forward one. Now watch, when I click previous, I'm going to get a single result, and then it's going to flash back to 2 results. So there's that single, and then it flashed back to 2. And what's happening is the listener that's on this list is, for some reason, I'm going to clear, actually I'll do this, and then I'll come back. And so we saw that issue. And so I'm outputting a number that tracks this is the ID of the listener for the search here, the onSnapshot callback function for that search. I'm looking at it, and it gets fired twice. That's what this is telling me, is that that query snapshot is coming back twice. Once from cache with a result size of 1, which is why that it flashes quickly for just the 1 by itself. And then it comes back again with the full, the size 2, which is my size 3, which is my current limit on the search. So I actually hide one of the entities. That's why 3 aren't shown. But what's killing me is the listener that's on this list here is stored. The function to kill it, to stop the listener, is stored here in this global variable. So this is that function where if I run that function, then updates to these guys won't happen real time. So from another screen, if I go into, if I can find Cowardly Lion, and I go in and I edit Cowardly Lion, and I change Cowardly Lion to Strong Lion. That update happened because this listener is still there. If I execute that function, that functionality will go away. I also have a listener that when you click into, say, Tony the Tiger, now here, this is listening for changes as well, Tony the Tiger. So if I go into a different screen over here, and I load Tony the Tiger over here, Tony the Tiger can be live updated. So we can call him Anthony the Tiger, and it'll update here. Now that listener is controlled by a separate listener, which is my entity listeners up here. That's this function, where if I execute this function, it updates, it will kill that update, so this screen won't be live anymore. So they're 2 different onSnapshots. They're 2 different onSnapshot callback functions that are acting at the same time. But this one, which is the listener, which represents the onSnapshot listener for this screen is stored, the data is stored in this current entity. Whereas in this screen, the data for this list is stored in my search entities. So it's here in the results, which you don't necessarily need to see, but the thing to note is that I've got these two different onSnapshot listeners. This one makes changes to this guy up here, and this one down here makes changes to the data here. So that's two different listeners acting on two different sets of data. So they shouldn't conflict with each other. But what's killing me is now that I've got those two open and one of them's listening to this Tony the Tiger, when I flip back, I get that echo response in this listener because of the second listener, because of the this in-depth listener. This guy here, this listener here, is affecting the listener here. Remember, I said they were two separate things, and I can prove that because, well, first let's talk about what's happening here. So if I clear this and I go forward, I'll clear it so that when I come back to that search, I get that double call on my, it's a double call to this listener here, this onSnapshot. It calls it once here where the cache is true, so that must be somehow reflecting off of the other listener. I don't know. The size is 1. I think I talked about this already. I've recorded this a couple times, so I'm confusing myself. But the size is 1 there, and then this one is the actual results that I would expect to get. No, that's not what I'm trying to look at. This query snapshot, no, that's the old one. This query snapshot, the second one, has the size that I'm looking for, which is 3. And so the weird thing is, if I kill, so I am going to kill the functionality, this listener here, or again, I still have that problem. This listener here, I'm going to execute that function and delete it, and this problem will go away, even though this function is in the background and shouldn't have anything to do with this listener. So if I do app.view.store.state, this is a vuex thing, dot entity listeners dot that dot, what is the, I need the value of this guy, which is 5J. So 5, shoot, this is really getting boring, I apologize. Primary caregiver 5J. I just copy that, paste that. I'm going to call this by an array. Some JavaScript issues here. There it is. So notice I still have this problem where if I go forward and back, I've got that reflection issue thing going on. But now I'm going to execute that function, which is going to remove that listener. And now when I go forward and back, I don't have that issue. Again, that listener that I just executed and removed doesn't have anything to do with this listener. This listener is still working, so that if I if I update Tony to Tiger here and I change him back to Tony, I mean, that's the listener for this list here, so that's still active. That is, this listener here. So I don't get why the two listeners that are separate can affect each other. They're different listeners, different onSnapshots, resulting on different arrays. But killing one seems to, one seems to cause some weird reflection in when I do a search from the other. I don't know if that's clear, but that's my situation, and it's very confusing at this point. Ultimately, all I have to do is anytime I'm on this screen, just make sure that those other listeners are cleared, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. They shouldn't be, conflicting with each other. So anyway, Terry Caliendo, Dedicated Managers, that's an update on some issues I'm having. I'm sure that was completely ununderstandable, but if it was, maybe you can help solve my problem. Take care. Have a great day. Happy coding.